can all agree that there is an absolute plethora of incriminating evidence against Stearns. I think there should be no doubt whatsoever that he is definitely going to be convicted. And I think the push for a death penalty, I think that will continue, and I think we will see him given a death penalty conviction. Now, if you happen to catch my guest appearance on Vicky Marie Chats, when we were talking about this case, one of the things we discussed was the poem that many people had received in their packages when they put in a FOIA request. And I'll show you some of this poem in a moment. And the debate by many has been, was this poem written by Stephen Stearns? Because what a lot of people are finding is the sheer volume of things that they've received from their FOIA requests has meant that a lot of things haven't really been properly labelled, so they're left guessing as to what a lot of things actually are. I think most people now are convinced that this poem was written by Stearns, and given the content of that poem, I think it seems logical to believe that. I know a few people have already done handwriting comparisons, but since we were discussing it on Vicky's channel last night, I thought I might as well jump in and do my own video discussing the differences and similarities in handwriting and looking at both Stearns and Jennifer Soto's handwriting alongside this poem. So we'll jump in. First of all, please hit the like button. And if you are new to my channel, please subscribe. All these things help me to get these videos out into the algorithm. Okay, so I want to point out the water stamp on the two documents that are either side of the poem, because I'm going to give out a huge shout out to Gavin Fish. There's several creators who have done FOIA requests, and many of them are making documents available. Gavin Fish has a Patreon account. Now he has a web page where you can find the documents that you're looking for. Those documents are available to his Patreon members. So you can go in, and now his membership is super affordable. I think for Americans it's something like $3 a month. If you're in Australia, it comes up to about $5 a month because of the difference in the dollar. But he has multiple cases in his files. So if you are someone who does like to have a look at documents and stuff from cases, there is just an absolute wealth of documents available, and audio and video stuff available through Gavin Fish's Patreon. So I highly recommend it, and I'll put links below. I'll put the link for his webpage below, so that if you are interested, you can go and check it out, and if you want to join his Patreon membership, you can, and this gives you access to multiple things. Looking at all the files that he has on Madeline Soto, you could get lost in there for just forever. And the list gets longer and longer. He's got all the photos. He's got so many documents. So definitely, if you are wanting to get stuff for yourself, there's one source. Of course, Paula Mooney, who is Plunder, I know she has a Patreon account as well, but I think you pay separately for each document. I'm not sure. Correct me on that if I'm wrong. But I think when it comes to the Madeline Soto case, there's a number of YouTube creators who have gone above and beyond to get FOIA requests. And I know some of them it's been at great expense, because when you do a FOIA request, you pay for the time spent doing redactions. So, on that note, I'm going to say this is why I haven't quite used the full poem here, because even though normally as a small creator I'd be like, pick me, I am going to say that I know that Grizzly, and I'm pretty certain Paula Plunder, have covered this poem and had a discussion about it, and knowing the cost that they have incurred in their FOIA requests, getting all this stuff for us, then I'm going to recommend that if you want to really dig into this poem, that you do go and check it out on either Paula's or Grizzly's channel. Just, help bring in a little bit more revenue for their channel to help cover the costs of all the documents that we are all able to now benefit from. Likewise, Gavin Fish, go and send some love over to his channel. Even if you don't go join his Patreon, he's still got some fabulous videos on the Madeline Soto case, and I think he has been perhaps a little bit overlooked, because it seems like YouTube is suddenly really pushing the huge channels again, so that when you look for Madeline Soto, the ones that come up are the really big channels, meaning that, and Gavin Fish is a sizable channel, but not quite sizable when you compare with Grizzly and Plunder. I'll put links for all those channels in the description, so that if you wanted to go share the love, you can. So, before I really dig into these, and I will zoom in at points through here, there's something important that we need to understand when it comes to handwriting. And that is that handwriting is a situational thing. In other words, someone's mental state will affect their handwriting. Someone's physical state will affect their handwriting. So if you look at your own handwriting, you'll see that it doesn't always stay the same. There are some things that are consistent in that the way you form the letters, that's memory response, so that will stay the same. But in terms of angle of the letters, in terms of spacing, in terms of how they sit on the line, etc., those things are going to change depending on where you are mentally, physically, etc. So that is something that is very important to keep in mind when we look at this comparison here. Now, before I zoom in, when you look at the writing on the poem, it is very precise. It is very accurate. To me, this is writing this is not a first draft. This is a piece of work where someone has created the poem as a draft somewhere. Now that is probably really scribbly, scrawly writing. And then, having achieved what they were happy with, they've then gone and created the final polished draft. And you know that because there is no mistakes in the writing. The spacing is spot on. They've underlined the heading they've gone with the expected format. It's a poem, so each line starts with a capital letter. These are all things that you would expect to see in a polished, finished document. Not only that, they've made sure that they've used their punctuation and they've made their punctuation look really clear. They've taken their time with the writing, so all the writing sits on the line for the most part. There are a few words that don't sit on the line, but for the most part, most of the words are pretty much sitting on the line. So this is a polished piece of writing. Whereas you look at the two statements either side, these are statements that were written straight out. There was no practicing what they write. This was simply, here's your piece of paper. We want you to write out your statement. Go for it. So you can see that there is a distinct difference in the way the writing has been done. Now, I'm going to zoom in a little bit first to look at Jen's handwriting so that we can be confident in ruling her out. So what is it about Jennifer Stern's writing that makes me confident in saying that I can rule her out completely as being the author of this poem? If you look at her writing, the first thing that you notice is the spacing of the letters. With all her words, the spacing of the letters is such that each of the letters is touching. So this is something that I would expect to see as being normal for her writing, something that would be standard when you look at her writing, the fact that her writing is close together. And part of the reason that all the writing is close together like that is because she has round, super round letters. Okay, if you look at her O's, if you look at her E's, her A's, they are actual circles. They're not squished up, okay? They are very round. When she writes letters such as Y and W, they are loopy. They're not straight lines. So they are rounded as well. There isn't the same sort of really sharp looking letters that you see on the left hand side in this poem. The letters in the poem, the vowels, the O's and the U's and the A's, are not round. They're more of an oval shape. So this is someone who does not write the same. The letters in the poem are separated. And yeah, you could say, okay, but that's a final draft. But like I said, I think when we look at the way Jen writes here, she does have very neat writing. So I think if she was writing a neat final draft, you would still see the big rounded letters. You would still see very similar spacing within the words, meaning that her letters probably still would touch. So for me, I'm quite confident that this is not her writing. There's also a few other things here, such as when you look at the way she forms T's in her writing, pretty much consistently, the cross of the T is actually in the middle of the line, not higher up. So in the writing on the left, while the cross of the T is still level with the tops of the other letters, because the letters are oval shaped, that means the cross of the T isn't in the centre of that upright line. You do see it occasionally on Jen's writing here to the right, but not consistently. Most of the time it sits pretty much central. So I could go deeper into looking at Jen's writing, but I think just from looking at those things there, I am more than confident that this was not written by Jennifer Soto. Now, at first glance, you may look at this and go, well, that's not the same writing, because the person on the left hasn't stuck to writing on the line. Their writing is far more messy. Their writing seems more scattered. But, like I said, when we look at someone in terms of where their mental health is at the time of writing, that is significant. So, on the left, this is Stearns writing a statement about Maddie going missing. He's writing this statement knowing that he is guilty. And he's writing this statement for law enforcement. So he would have been under a great deal of stress in doing this. The one on the right is obviously, like I said, it is more precise, it is more polished. It is written by someone who's taken the time to write a draft and is now, they've got all the time in the world to write in their neatest writing, take their time, and write it as accurately as they can. So what we need to look at is the formation of individual letters. And of course things like letter spacing. Now, another time I would like to look at his statement and have a look at some of the things that stand out to me in terms of things that immediately draw my eye to them. Like, for example, where if you're looking at this one, closed is written larger and more spaced out than the other words. So there's something about that is significant. And I couldn't tell you what it is, but clearly saying that this must be talking about the vape shop was closed, that is something significant to him. But that's not what I'm looking at today. Today I just want to look at his writing and see if it compares with this poem. Now, the thing I see with this poem is that this is very sharp writing. When you look at a lot of the consonants, like T, W, Y, it's very sharp. There's sharp angles in those. And when you look at Stern's writing, you see the same thing. The way he forms his letter Y is the same way, very sharp. Okay, when you look at the W's in his writing, it is the same, very sharp W. In terms of letter shape, you're looking at letters that are more of an oval shape as opposed to being super round. And the punctuation, it stands out the same way in this statement. The punctuation is really precise. To me, the way this is written on both pages here, it looks like the writing of a 10-year-old. And this is not me trying to be rude or trying to say that Stearns is a 10-year-old. What I'm saying is that this is writing that has not developed beyond learning the structure of the writing. This is not someone who's developed their own writing style. They've simply been taught this is how you form your letters, and they've continued to form them the same way. This is what you would expect to see in a child who is at primary school age and has not yet started to develop their own style of writing. And to me, I see that on both sides of the page. Like I said, the writing on the left does go up and down off the line, but I believe that when you consider that that was written under stress, that is significant. But there are things here that to me are so very similar. So the W's are very sharp. When you look at the formation of the A's, it is the same sort of formation. You've got your oval shape, and then you've got the same angle of the line on the A. There's a few instances on the left when it isn't quite so sharp on the A. It loops to jump onto the R, but for the most part, it is still the same angle. And you can see when you look at the R's in this, on the right hand side where this is more polished writing, you can see that they have very carefully done the straight line first and then gone back up and then done the loop. When they've done it with this writing on the left hand side, if you look at in the middle of the page there's the word carried, and that shows you the formation of the R's the most clearly, I think, and you can see that it is heavy on the line and then loops across. So this is someone who does still follow the very precise way of writing their letters. Same with what I was saying before about how with this particular thing on the poem, the T's are level with the tops of the letters, and the line tends to sit higher up. Now this is where there is a difference. There's a number of instances throughout this writing on the left where the line on the T is pretty much in the middle, and it falls below the line of the other letters. I don't know if that's significant, but at the same time, it is still that very precise, very sharp lettering. So that's where there is a difference there. Like I said, I'm not sure if that is significant or if that is something where you've got someone writing under stress. When they use capital I, they do it with the sticks on top and bottom. So that is a consistency. I couldn't tell you if those I's are exactly the same, but it is definitely consistency. Likewise, when I look at the way they write the letter F. Now, for some people, when you write letter F, you might loop it down below the line a little bit, make it a little bit loopy. Both these documents have the letter F sitting on top of the line. On the polished version, on the right hand side, it sits spot on the line. But on the left hand side, it hovers above the line quite a lot. But the line on the F doesn't cross through, and that is something quite unique. At the top, where it's got from, it almost crosses through. But I think that would be more about the writing being rushed, the person who is writing being under stress, as opposed to a different style. Because when you look at the other F's that are written, in this document. If you look down to the second line from the bottom, for a few, the line is only on one side. So I feel quite confident when I look at this that even though there is a distinct difference in terms of how neat the writing is, how the writing sits on the line, I think that there are definitely enough consistencies here in the handwriting for me to believe that this could well have been Stearns' writing. I could go on all day looking at the comparisons, but I think if you have a look at it and you just look at individual letters, you look at word spacing, you look at the shape of the letters in terms of them having that really sharp look about them, having that oval look about them, then there is that consistency. So while I couldn't say 100% that I believe this is Stearns' writing, I feel fairly confident that I am looking at writing by the same person on these 2 pages. I would like to hear your thoughts on this though. Do you think that this poem was written by Stearns, or do you think it is something else? I mean, I think given the context of it, I think we can be 99.9% certain that this poem was written by Stearns, and I think that the prosecution will have an utter field day with this should this whole case go to court. I suspect that it will go to court because I think he's just far too arrogant to plead guilty. So his lawyer's probably trying to cook up some kind of defence for him right now. But yeah, leave me your thoughts. What are your thoughts on the handwriting that's in the poem as opposed to the handwriting in Stearns' statement?